On the astral plane, the soul also receives the aid and assistance of some of the great spiritual teachers of the race, whose chosen occupation is to administer to the wants of the pained and suffering souls who are striving to find the way out of their troubles and mistakes. Not only do these teachers administer to the strictly spiritual wants of the souls seeking their help, but in many cases the soul is given the advantage of great assistance in chosen occupations such as art, science, music, invention, etc., from advanced congenial souls ready and willing to help strugglers on the path. Many an artist, musician, writer, or inventor, has come into rebirth greatly benefited and improved by reason of contact with such helpers in the astral plane. Finally, after the longer or short period of sojourn of the soul upon the astral plane, the duration of which depends upon the degree of spiritual development of the soul, there comes to it the first dawn of a new state or condition, known to occultists as the second soul sleep or slumber, in which the soul is prepared for its new birth on earth which is coming to it. A writer has well described this state as follows. The second soul sleep is preceded by a transition state of gradually declining activity and consciousness and a corresponding desire for rest on the part of the soul. The natural processes of the astral plane nearing their close, the soul begins to experience a feeling of lassitude and weariness, and instinctively longs for rest and repose. It finds that it has lived out the greater part of its desires, ambitions, and ideas, and in many cases has also outlived them. There comes to it a wistful feeling of having fulfilled the purpose of its destiny, and a premonition of the coming of some newer phase of existence. The soul does not feel pain at the approach of the second soul sleep, but on the contrary, experiences satisfaction and happiness at the coming of something which promises rest and recuperation. Like the weary traveler who has climbed the mountain paths and has delighted in the experiences of the journey, the soul feels that it has well earned a restful repose, and like that traveler, it looks forward to the same with longing and desire. The same writer says the soul may have passed by a few years, or perhaps 100 or 1,000 years, of earth time on the astral plane, according to its degree of development and unfoldment. But, be its stay short or long, the feeling of weariness reaches it at last, and like many aged persons in earth life, it feels that my work is over, let me pass on. So sooner or later the soul feels a desire to gain new experience and to manifest in a new life some of the advancement which has come to it by reason of its unfoldment on the astral plane. And from their reasons, and also from the attraction of the desires which have been smoldering there, not lived out or cast off, or possibly influenced by the fact that some loved soul on a lower plane is ready to reincarnate and wishing to be with that soul, which is also a form of desire, and the soul falls into a current sweeping toward rebirth and the selection of proper parents and advantageous environment. In consequence whereof it again falls into a state of soul slumber, gradually, and so when its time comes it dies on the astral plane as it did before on the material plane, and passes forward toward rebirth on earth. There is another fact concerned with the awakening of the soul at rebirth, however, which is seldom mentioned by writers upon the subject, and which is consequently not known to many persons familiar with the other facts concerning rebirth. This fact is as follows. Strictly speaking, the soul continues in a condition of partial slumber even after it has been reborn in earth life. It does not fully awaken at once in the body of the newborn child in which it has been reincarnated, but on the contrary, it awakens only gradually during the early childhood and youth of the child. A writer speaking of the above important fact concerning rebirth says, A soul does not fully awaken from its second soul slumber immediately upon rebirth, but exists in a dreamlike state during the days of infancy, its gradual awakening being evidenced by the growing intelligence of the babe, the brain of the child keeping pace with the demands made upon it. In some cases, however, the awakening is premature, and we see cases of prodigies, child geniuses, etc., but such cases are more or less abnormal and unhealthy. Occasionally, the dreaming soul in the child half awakes and startles its elders by some profound observation or mature remark or conduct. The rare instances of precocious children and infant geniuses are illustrations of cases in which the awakening has been more than ordinarily rapid. On the other hand, cases are known where the soul does not awaken as rapidly as the average, and the result is that the person does not show signs of full intellectual activity until nearly middle-aged. Cases are known where men seem to wake up when they are 40 years of age, or even older, and then take on freshened activity and energy, surprising those who had known them before. Here we ask the student to carefully consider another point concerning the need of and the consequences of the second soul slumber. Just as in the first soul slumber, the soul underwent a period of spiritual digestion and assimilation of the experiences of its earth life, so in the second soul slumber, it undergoes a period of digestion and assimilation of its experiences on the astral plane. In both of these periods of spiritual digestion and assimilation, the soul converts the substance of the experience into the solid flesh, bone, and blood of its character. It has outlived many things during its sojourn on the astral plane, and has left many undesirable qualities behind it. In moving on toward rebirth during the second soul slumber, each soul goes to where it belongs, by reason of what it is. There is no favoritism shown, nor any injustice done it. The soul is not forced to reincarnate against its desires. In fact, it reincarnates because of its unsatisfied desires. It is carried into the current of rebirth because its taste and desires have created bonds of attraction between it and the things of earth. These desires and tastes can be satisfied only through another experience of earth life amidst environment and conditions best suited to allow it to manifest those desires and tastes. It hungers to satisfy its desires and longings, and it moves in the direction in which such satisfaction is possible. Desire is always the great motive power of the soul in determining the conditions of rebirth and the very fact of rebirth itself. A writer on the subject has well said, "The soul, preserving its desire for material things, the things of flesh and material life, and not being able to divorce itself from these things, will naturally fall into the current of rebirth, which will lead it toward conditions in which these desires will flourish and become manifest. It is only when the soul, by means of many earth lives, begins to see the worthlessness and illusionary nature of earthly desires, and it begins to become attracted by the things of the life of its higher nature, and, escaping the flowing currents of earthly rebirth, it rises above them and is carried to higher spheres. The average person, after years of earthly experience, is apt to say that he or she has no more desire for earth life, and that his or her only desire is to leave the same behind forever. These persons are perfectly sincere in their statements and beliefs, but a glance into their inmost souls would reveal an entirely different state of affairs. They are not, as a rule, really tired of earth life, but are merely tired of the particular kind of earth life which they have experienced during that incarnation. They have discovered the illusionary nature of a certain set of earthly experiences and feel disgusted at the same, but they are still full of another set of experiences on earth. They have failed to find happiness or satisfaction in their own experience, but they will admit, if they are honest with themselves, that if they could have had things go just so and so, instead of thus and thus, they would have found happiness and satisfaction. The if may have been satisfied love, wealth, fame, gratified ambition, success of various kinds, etc. But be it what it may, the if is nearly always there, and that if is really the seed of their remaining desires, and the longing for that if is really the motive for rebirth. Very few persons would care to live over their earth life in the same way, but like old Omar, they would be perfectly willing to remake the world according to their heart's desire and then live the earth life. It is really not the earth life at all which is distasteful to them, but merely the particular experiences of earth life which are disdained. Give to the average man and woman youth, health, wealth, talent, and love, and they will be very willing to begin the round of earth life afresh. It is only the absence of or failure in these or similar things which causes them to feel that life is a failure and a thing to be joyfully left behind. The soul in its sojourn upon the astral plane is rested, refreshed, and reinvigorated. It has forgotten the weariness of life which it had experienced during the previous incarnation. It is again young, hopeful, vigorous, and ambitious. It feels within itself the call to action, the urge of unfulfilled desires, aspirations, and ambitions, and it readily falls into the currents which lead it to the scene of action in which these desires are manifested. The same writer also says another point which should be cleared up is that regarding the character of the desires which serve as a motive power for rebirth, it is not meant that these desires are necessarily low or unworthy desires or longings. On the contrary, they may be of the highest character and might be more properly styled aspirations, ambitions, or high aims. But the principle of desire is in them all. Desires, high and low, are the seeds of action, and the impulse toward action is always the distinguishing feature of desire. Desire always wants to have things or to do things or to be things. Love, even of the most unselfish kind, is a form of desire. So is aspiration of the noblest kind. A desire to benefit others is as much a desire as its opposite. In fact, many unselfish souls are drawn back into rebirth simply by the insistent aspiration to accomplish some great work for the race, or to serve others, or to fulfill some duty inspired by love. But high or low, if these desires are connected in any way with the things of earth, they are rebirth motives and rudders. But in conclusion, let us say that no soul which does not in its inmost soul desire to be reborn on earth will ever be so reborn. Such a soul attracted toward other spheres where the attractions of earth exist not. In that case, the law of attraction carries the soul away from earth, not toward it. There are many souls which are now on the astral plane undergoing the final stages of the casting off of the earthly bonds. And there are many souls now in earth life which will never again return to earth, but which after their next sojourn on the astral plane will rise to the higher planes of existence, leaving the earth and all earthly things behind forever. At the present time we are nearing the end of a cycle in which a very great number of souls are preparing for their upward flight, and many who read these lines may well be advanced in that cyclic movement.